Okay, hello and welcome to Hello Governor the podcast. As always, I am Abdullah, and with me today is returning guest Erik Braa. How you doing, Eric?
Hello, Governor. I am good. I am very happy to be chatting with you.
And we gotta like redo all the jokes we did the first time we tried recording this.
Well, you're just giving them a peek behind the curtain, huh? All right.
Before we get started, I just want to say free podcasting tip. You know, make sure that your gain levels and your audio levels are not too high. Otherwise, you'll start clipping and it'll sound awful. And yeah,
Pro audio tip.
yeah. But anyway, thank you again for agreeing to do this again. I know that this month has been crazy and you're busy and I deeply apologize on the mess up on my part, but hopefully it should sound good. And if it isn't, then whatever, you know.
All good. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah. So let's just get right to it. Moon Knight. Let's talk about Moon Knight, seeing as that's like what most people are probably listening to this
Let's
for.
talk about Moon Knight.
Yeah, it's interesting that by the time people hear this, it'll be October, and I think you know what, Moon Knight is probably like a good like supernatural character for October, so it kind of works itself out, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
And
so
it's getting darker and longer nights.
yeah. So how did you
More
get
time to beat up the bad guys.
yeah? So how did you get involved in Marvel Rivals? Like and was Moon Knight the only character you auditioned for?
I auditioned for a whole bunch of them, or at least a good handful of characters. I'm a fan of Marvel comics, so I was very excited to get the opportunity. And Moon Knight was definitely one of the higher ranked, if I get this part kind of characters. And so I was pretty stoked to get it. And it was, gosh, that was almost 3 years ago now that I recorded it, and then it took 2 years before it even came out, and then and then now we're almost a year after its release, and it's thrilling, to be honest with you. I'm actually getting ready to start playing the game and streaming it myself, but working on it. Got a computer on the way, so I'll be able to set up and start playing the game and streaming it. But yeah, and honestly, it's I love the characters. I think the game, they did a great job with it. I shall not name the other people that it might have sort of taken the place of game wise, but it sort of made quality improvements on quality of life improvements on the game that was there in place, and made it a little bit better. And then I mean, the awesomeness of having Marvel characters be a part of the gaming universe in that way is awesome. And so it's I guess a hit, I guess you could say, and it's going well, and I'm very happy to be a part of it. I love the characters. Like I said, I'm a fan. So getting the part was a big plus, big win.
And what was it like, auditioning for that project? Because I know everything is under code names. So when you got the audition slides, were you like, "Oh, this I know what this is," or were you surprised to find out what
I
this
I mean,
was?
I knew what it was when I saw the character sheets, because it told you who the character was, and you're like, oh my God. And so that was exciting. It was a code name, but it wasn't too well hidden, to be honest with you. Like, you kind of knew what was going on, and then you looked at once you download the audition sheets and everything, and you're like, oh yeah, I know this character. And so that was super exciting, actually. And I had no idea what the ultimate game would be. I thought it was going to be a different thing altogether. I saw a mobile game that was big at the time, and I thought, oh well, it's probably only a couple of lines and some emotes, getting hurt and whatnot, and it's probably like a mobile game. And then, as time passed, you realize this is a much bigger thing. And the session itself, you were like, well, this is kind of long for like a mobile game. This, and the further we went, the further we realized what was happening. And then they finally did I guess that's a year or so ago. They did the beta or whatever, or the alpha or something, and they had a playtest area, and my character wasn't in it, and I was like, oh, well, maybe I got cut. And then they turned off the beta, and people were like, whoa, man, where's my fix? Um, and so that was kind of inspiring, and definitely made the good vibes happen. And then I got another session right before it released, and about this time a year ago, maybe a couple weeks more, I did a last session before it released, and I was like, "So you're not replacing me?" And they were like, "No, no, we like what you're doing." And I was like, "Oh, I'm thrilled, man! I cannot wait." And then they contacted me just before it released and said it's okay to say that you know what your character is, and I was like, "Oh my God, yes!" So yeah, I got out there and started screaming about the moon haunting you.
Yeah, yeah, because as I'm pretty sure everyone is aware at this point, you guys are under heavy NDAs, and sometimes even when a project comes out, you're like, "Am I allowed to talk about this? Am I allowed to say that I'm a
Yeah,
part of this? What's going on?"
yeah. No, I am actually. There's a project I've been working on for a little while now, and I'm very excited about it. And I have no idea when it's coming. I think it could be another year. I don't know, but they flat out told me like even when it comes out, don't say anything until somebody like acknowledges that you're in there or whatever. It was like, oh my goodness, okay. There, some of these NDAs are very serious, and like I do not. I mean, I am joking, but I feel like I'm not joking when I say like, there's moments that you're like walking around, and if a friend goes, "Oh, what are you up to?" and it's like you look around because you're expecting to see lawyers or a drone or something coming after you if you say anything, because it's very strict NDA. So yeah, you have to not tell any. You have to tell people you're very excited about the project you're working on, but you can't say what it is. And that is brutal for well, for anybody, I guess. I was gonna say for me, it was just like I want to talk. I have a bad habit of spoiling things sometimes about shows, and they'll be, oh, and then in the episode, and people are like, dude, don't tell me anything. I want to see it. I'm like, oh, right, sorry. So yeah, you can't say anything.
Oh yeah, especially nowadays with the internet, and you're trying so hard. Like, cause sometimes with me, I try to go into things blind as best as I can to get the full experience. But then I'll see like a YouTube video of someone being like, "This movie explained," and I'm like, don't do that. I
Yeah.
haven't watched it yet."
Oh, and the worst is if it like auto plays or something and it starts telling you stuff, and you're like, no, no. I have a habit of like when there's a movie I'm excited to see, and the trailers come on, I will mute the TV and change the channel, or you know what I mean. Like I don't want to see anything. I want to go in completely blind. The trailers, I don't even want to see anything. I want to go in completely blind, so that I have everything's new to me. Because there's one thing you cannot stand is like you've seen a trailer, and then you see what some would say maybe the best parts in the trailer, and you're like, well, now it's lost its, you know what I mean, the magic of when I would have seen that in the theater, or on the screen, or whatever it is, or the game, the twist in a game or something like that. You're like, come on, man.
Oh, it's especially it's especially even worse now because when you're scrolling through social media, you'll come across a post of someone like talking about a thing, and it's like, "Oh my God, can you believe this happened?" And it's just like,
Right.
I haven't seen it. I don't know what the context is. Why did you spoil that for
Yeah.
me?
I hadn't watched there's a the Alien Earth show is out, and the finale came out, and I was like, hadn't watched it yet, and they're like, the finale explained, and I'm like, wait, no, I haven't even seen it yet. Don't try to explain it all to me yet.
Oh, it's especially annoying when you're like scrolling through social media, and like the main company account is like promoting it, and they post like a big spoiler, and it's just like, why would you do that? Like,
Yeah.
why would you do that? Like, because I know they did that with Peacemaker season 2, where they posted like Lex Luthor's cameo, and I'm just like, why would you do that? That's
Yeah, you
lame.
just spoiled that for me. I haven't even.
Oh, sorry guys. I mean, but it was on the official like DC like.
No, I'm teasing you, but yeah, no, it's really funny how that works. Yeah,
It's especially it's a and again, like I was like, speaking of like DC, I remember like looking up the reason why Superman was released on digital early was because James Gunn insisted, like, you know what, people need to watch Superman to get what's going on in like season 2 of Peacemaker, and I don't want it to get spoiled. So there you go.
Right. Absolutely.
But it is interesting because we're in that era where that sort of stuff. I look at I look at that stuff, and I'm just kind of wondering, like, with spoilers, especially because I'm thinking to myself, like, we live in an age where it's kind of impossible to go into anything blind, and especially when you're an actor and you're working on these big projects and they're all hush hush about it. Do you feel like there's much more pressure nowadays to try to keep everything under NDA as opposed to a couple of years ago?
I mean, I think so because, well, you have social media, and it's like again, if you're an actor, you want to promote the fact that you're working on these things, and you need to stay quote unquote relevant, I guess is one way to put it, because you're like, yeah, I want to, I'm very excited about this. I'm, again, you're proud of your work, and you want to stay relevant, and people, oh, this guy's working on big stuff, but you're like, I can't say anything about it, and so it's really tough to promote yourself as an actor and then not, spoil the NDA.
Yeah, it becomes difficult. Especially remember when I'm talking to someone who's working on a popular show, and I'm just kind of wondering, like, how far deep can we go into spoiler discussions before people get mad at us, because
Right.
that's a thing. And especially when you're talking to someone who's working on a show that just came out that only has like one season and they've been renewed for like two more seasons, you're just kind of wondering, like, is your character going to come back for the second and third season? Who knows, you know?
Right. Right. And then the other things where like you've already recorded stuff from the next season or the next whatever, and you're like, oh man. And then there has a, so do you think the character comes back or will be, and you're like, I don't know, I hope so.
Yeah, yeah, it's especially hard when you're, like I said, with social media, it is very difficult to keep, not only promoting yourself as an actor, but like to keep in mind, like, oh, I don't want to like give too much away when it comes to the current projects I'm working on. Because with Marvel Rivals, for example, it's a popular game. There's been rumors about who's going to be in the roster and who isn't going to be in the roster, and
Hmm.
you're going to stumble across that speculation regardless, and you're going to get people asking you, like, hey, is so and so in the game? And it's like, I can't tell you,
Right.
maybe.
Right. And the other thing is what's funny is you'll catch yourself too. Like somebody says, so what's your favorite line or something in that? And you know, I instantly want to talk about, the where are you, Dracula, you blood sucking nerd? Where's my, you owe me money or whatever. And it's like I know it's canon to the comic, so it's like, yes, Dracula owes him $5, but it's like I can't, if they haven't announced that that line is in there, or that the player that is going to trigger that line is, you know what I mean? So it's kind of awkward where you're like, can I say this? Because I don't know how, what, like right now, I don't know all of what has been released within Marvel Rivals. I don't think I have anything to spoil, but I'm just saying that if there's a new character coming that maybe I recorded a quip already and I just don't remember it right now, and because we literally see the script often when we're recording, so we don't memorize it or hold on to it or anything like that. So, and a lot of that is, they make sure that you delete everything the minute you're done with the session, or you're doing it live and they just wipe it away, and you're like, so you can't really say anything. It makes it tricky for sure.
And what are some, speaking of like your favorite Moon Knight lines, what are some of your favorite Moon Knight lines?
Well, I love his alt, obviously, which of course some people hate because all they hear is the moo, and then they're dead. So, but the Dracula line, I love. I know that one's in there. I'm pretty sure that one's in there. And then there were a couple early on. I think it was Captain America where he says, "Aren't you in the Avengers?" And I tell him that I ripped up my ID card. there was a few lines in there that I really enjoyed, and it was great because it was again reacting and interacting with, some of the Avengers and major Marvel heroes that I thought was really super fun.
And seeing as this is a character who doesn't really have a definitive voice, did you feel like there was pressure bringing this character to life for people who?
Well, they had the live action series with Oscar Isaac, which is why I thought they might replace me with somebody who sounded more like him. Um, but then they decided to go a different route, and I think the thing about the series was is they started with basically Stephen Grant instead of Mark Spector, so there was the English accent aspect of that performance, but I start out with Mark 100%. And then the cool thing was that, which again, I have seen somebody comment like, oh, it's a wasted opportunity to not have a different actor for every voice. But I liked the fact that they all come from the same voice box. So having me do all the characters, I thought was really neat. So I do a line or two as Steven, I do some as Jake, and I do Khonshu as well. So four voices in one. And I'm stoked about it. I think it's really neat that you get to do, a little bit of Jake and Steven, so, and of course, Mark. So, yeah, I loved that.
It's like, look, man, we already paid for the session. We're not gonna like, not gonna hire anybody else for this because it costs money.
Well, they were considering it. They absolutely were considering it, and I kind of said, well, can I give you my versions of them, and then if you want to keep them, you can keep them. So I went through and did, whenever it came up, a line for Stephen, what is going on? And then of course Jake, hey, the moon haunts you. So I I did all of the ones I could, and they even wanted to do the Khonshu different, and I just added a more, a lot of air to it, and just made it, yes, my son. So yeah, I was stoked to get to do all of them, but they did consider it. They told me that they were thinking about having another actor do the other lines, which I get. Again, it's a coin flip of whether or not you're happy about that, of me doing them or somebody else being a different voice. I think they all come from the same voice box, so it's all basically Mark's body. I think so.
Yeah, because it's the same guy. You're not like it doesn't make sense to have like different people voice the same character, and all they're doing is putting on a different voice. That doesn't like. I know they're different.
Right.
I know they're different personalities, but like you said, they're the same. They're the same person, which is like it's the same thing with voiceover. Like you're one actor, but you're doing all these different characters, but you're still one actor at the end of the day.
Well, the hope is that like if you get to do more than one character in a game, then this is where it differs. If you're doing more than one character in a game, then you want to sound as different as possible. But when you're the same body that has three or four identities in it, then you want to keep it, if you can, have the person adjust their voice to do all the different characters, because that's how someone would sort of hear Jake if he was coming out of Mark's windpipe. So I feel like it's roughly the same.
Yeah, I mean it's again at the end of the day it's still the same guy, so they still have to have the same mannerisms in a way.
Yeah, the same sort of voice print, I think, is what makes sense to me. Because, like I said, I think it's all one voice box, you know. So even though the accent might change, it's still, one of the characters.
And that's another thing that we talked about previously is that you have such an impressive range that even I'm sometimes surprised. I look up your resume on IMDb and I'm like, "Oh yeah, I forgot he was Master Koge in Zelda."
Yeah, I mean, I thank you. I'm proud that I get to do a lot of different voices. I have always been, it starts when you're a kid and you're playing with like Hot Wheels or Star Wars figures or whatever it is, and each one's got to have a different voice, and so you start mimicking other people, and obviously, I always joke about this that every bad impression I do is a new character for me. So The example being somebody like Jeff Goldblum or something. I don't do a great Jeff Goldblum. I do a bad impression of him, so it creates a new character for me. And nobody's going to go, "Oh, that's Jeff Goldblum." It's no, no, no. It's not. It's me doing an affectation. So it's silly, but at the same time, it creates a new character. So next time I find a character like that, that's what I use is my bad impression of somebody else.
Yeah, it reminds me of I don't know if you're familiar with the show The Venture Brothers, but the creators of that show, they do most of the voices, and they flat out said in like one of the commentaries that what the two old guys that get their heads stuck together are just them doing a bad Alec Guinness impression, So it's like there you
Right.
go.
Yep. And I mean that's to me that's a little bit of a secret there of voiceover is that sometimes you I mean one of the things you have to have is as they call it a smorgasbord of characters. You have to have this a lot of different characters that you can do different things with. Almost like you're going to do a one man show or a one person show and do all the different voices. Is the same way I just have different characters and um, Master Koga being somebody who's, obviously we know about Moon Knight and where he's at. But Master Koga's always been he's a dastardly little villain. And who's the top banana? Master Koga. So yeah, it's just playing with the voice and hopefully you can do more than one or two things to create new characters.
And out of all the characters you voiced, which one would you say was the toughest?
Wow, I the toughest is I think the ones that are more demanding. I say this all the time too. There's a recent one. Well, actually, I don't even know if it's recent. I think it's almost a year old now. But Burning Spice Cookie in Cookie Run Kingdom. After talking like this for a while, I start to get a little tired, and the voice starts to slip a little, or you're like, oh, I can hear that you're straining a little bit because he does a lot of yelling, and so there's a whole lot of yelling like this, and so eventually that kind of wears me down. It takes a little while. I mean, it takes a good hour and a half session of a lot of yelling, and then it breaks down. I think I've told the story before that I did 4K, sorry, 2K sports, NBA 2K, and I did a 4 hour session for that. That it beat me up. It really like I left that day, that studio that day, and I was going back to the airport because I had to go down to LA for it, and I was like, oh boy, I'm gonna feel it. Like I got I got home and I was taking honey, putting a scoop of honey and you just let it kind of drain down the back of your throat and it helps to heal your pipes. Also, there's a thing called straw phonation where you take a very thin, almost like a stirrer straw instead of a full on straw, but you blow through that and and it helps to cycle the air over your vocal cords that actually helps heal them. So yeah, there's little tricks that people use. Beyonce uses that one, by the way. For when the vocally she's getting a little beat up, she does some straw phonation.
And was there ever a point where you felt like you pushed yourself at your absolute limit, and you're just like, look, guys, I can't do it anymore. I'm sorry.
Well, there, like I said, that session, and there's been a couple others that were like, fighting or war games where you had to scream a lot, and they always save the emotes, the deaths, and all the damage and all that till the end of the session, because that's when you're really going to blow it out. And it's one of the reasons that SAG asked for shorter sessions on some of the more intensive work because they were like, look, these actors are leaving and then they're out of work for a couple days, and so the stuff where you're screaming, I think the worst one, DB Cooper did this one time. It is dying by fire, dying by being put on fire. That is a, and I'm holding back right now, obviously, but yeah, when you're doing it, you will blow out your voice because you are trying to portray the honesty of being burnt alive.
Yeah, because I've talked to people who've done work for Insomniac Games, and if you've ever done work for Insomniac, you know that they're very detail oriented. They're just like, okay, you're getting punched, but you're getting punched in the gut. Give us a
Right,
sound of you getting punched in the gut versus, and then give us a sound that you're getting punched in the face. And
right.
it's I know it sounds weird to ask people like, well, what's the difference? But there is a difference. There is a huge difference between getting
Oh
punched.
yeah, no, I mean, you actually just common sense will tell you. Like if you get punched in the gut, it's oof, it's pushing air out of you, oof, as opposed to in the face, like it's a sharper kind of thing. So they all sound different, and when they ask you to do those very specific things, I mean, obviously you have to be an actor and dig into your toolbox and know exactly what it's going to sound like, or generally. The other thing is when the character's very specific, if they have, I don't know, something about them that might change the sound in some way. I mean, obviously robots are, ow, ow, you know. But pushing air out of the body and things like that that would happen from getting kicked in the gut or something like that would, yeah, it's a whole different thing. So yeah, as I'm over here trying to,
Yeah, because it's one of those things that people don't really consider, but you have to because the player will notice it, and you got to put in that extra detail because that's why they do it. That's why they do it because anybody can do like and it'll just not. That's whatever, but like you got to put in that extra detail to make it sound authentic because if it's not authentic, then the
yeah.
player's going to be like, well, wait a minute, this sounds fake.
Well, that's the thing is the player can tell something's not right. They don't always put their finger exactly on it, but they can tell something here's not. I don't. That doesn't sound right. I don't like, and it can take you out of the experience. The whole point is we want you to immerse yourself in it, and have a good time with it. So, yeah, it's kind of it's important to do the best you can. I mean, I get it. Back in the day, for those of you younger, don't remember, 8-bit and 16-bit. A lot of times it was ah. There was like the same damage. It didn't matter what it was. They just used the same file. Um, or they'd had a small, a medium, and a high, or heavy. Those kinds of things. They would have just like and that was about it. Now we have so many different ways that you can die, and so many different kinds of damage you can take, and so 100% it changes your performance. Yeah.
And you notice it like when you're playing like something that was recorded like a couple years ago versus now, and you hear the attention to detail and difference in performances because nowadays uh, directors want everything to be more grounded, so you have to go into that. So nowadays you have to go in with that mindset where it's like, okay, they want more grounded performance, more grounded like
Hmm.
uh, take on the character as opposed to cartoony or
Yeah.
whatever.
Well, and that's the thing is, I mean, heck, I probably fall victim to doing more cartoony all the time, but yeah, finding something that's grounded that feels real is a bit tougher than the cartoony thing because you can always, you're just coming up with a character, yeah, and he sounds too cartoony. But if you want to make him real, you go, I'm coming up with a character. He has to sound like I've been doing this for 20 years. I am this guy.
And you have to embody that character. You have to be that character for an average session, which is like an average 4 hour session, and you have to like stay in that mindset. And then when they yell out cut, then you can go back to being you.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I know people that stay in character throughout the whole session, where even if they say, "You doing okay?" They're like, "I'm fine, thank you." It's like, "Oh, okay, you're not going to give us your actual voice." And then there's people that just, "Yep, I'm good, thanks. Let's get back into it." That's the same as on camera actors too. Which I mean, we're all actors. It's all the same thing. I kind of it annoys me when somebody goes, "Oh, do you need real acting?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I do real acting every single day." Um, Sometimes you just don't see my face, but it's all real acting. But yeah, as far as on camera stuff, yeah, it can change. Maybe the difference is they can see your face, so you can be like, "Oh boy." So maybe you don't have to go too hard with the audio, but you can show it in the face. But in voiceover, you have to kind of like emote. You have to make it sound like, oh, that one hurt pretty bad, you know. And sometimes all you have is ah.
Yeah, and that's a good point you bring up, in that, I'm personally of that. I have that mindset as well, where I think that acting is acting. Like, there is no. I hate this idea that we have to differentiate like voiceover and acting, and quote unquote real acting as these separate
Right.
entities, because it's the same thing. Like, you're still acting. I mean, JB Blanc
Yep.
put it best in like every interview he's ever done, where he says, "Look, I hate the term voice acting because it's just acting. It's not like, it's just
Hmm.
acting. You're
Yeah, and I mean we're talking about JB Blanc because the man is has studied with at the best places possible, and he's an incredible talent, great human being from what I know of him. I can't say that we're like best buddies, but we know each other, or we've worked together a few times. He's directed me in sessions. Probably drove him nuts one session. I was doing a Scottish accent, and he just I kept it was supposed to be something like just a wee bit closer, and he just was like, no, no, you're not on it, mate. And he just kept trying to push me there. I think we finally got one take that he was willing to accept, but it was reluctant.
and that's like a scary experience, because you're just like working with JB Blanc, who is just amazing at everything he does, and you're just like,
Yeah.
I hope I don't screw this up. I hope he doesn't think less of me for like wasting his time.
Oh, for sure, for sure. I mean, I've had people that I see as like heroes or mentors that have directed me, and I'm like, oh gosh, like if I look like an idiot in this session, I'm never gonna feel like I'm ever at that level. So yeah, I'm hopefully gonna see JB soon. We're both gonna be at a con together, so I hope I get a chance to run into him and say hello. I'm not in LA, so I don't get to rub elbows quite as often as the folks that are right there in LA all the time.
But you have done cons because, of Moon Knight, and you're getting invited to these events, and you're doing more you're meeting more people, is basically what I'm trying to say. So, like, what has that experience been like? Because you didn't used to do a lot of those last time we spoke.
Yeah, I think Moon Knight was a big part of that. That created more draw for me to be there. The funniest part, I think, is the fact that Moon Knight brought me in the door, but then it's the other characters that sometimes people go, wait a minute. They come up to the table and I have prints laid out, and they forget that I was there. Wait a minute, you were Draven in League? Yeah, you were Master Kohga in Zelda. Yep. Oh, you were this and that, and somebody actually was bummed that I didn't have a print for the Spirit Tree in Ori and the Blind Forest. It's You never know what somebody's going to be into, including there's multi-generational. I had somebody come in, and their daughter was really into Burning Spice Cookie, and I have a print for that, and she said, oh, well, she definitely wants that signed. And then she said, but I just want to thank you for your sleep stories. And I was like, yeah, no, yeah, I'm glad to hear it, because I've been able to put people to sleep, which is something you would never want to say in voiceover. You'd always want people to pay attention to your characters and your work. But sleep stories happens to be something that there's a lot of people that appreciate me for that, because I read them to sleep every night, or many nights. So yeah, it's amazing how the draw when they're at the table and they realize either it's that character I really appreciated from the past, or something that you're doing that's not even in video games, or that kind of thing. It's pretty interesting. And it's a wide group of people. I'm very happy to get to. Somebody literally wanted a video of me talking to their mom and saying good night, and sweet dreams and all of that, because their mom listens to my sleep stories, but they were very into. Actually, they came in because of Moon Knight, but then they were like, wait a minute, I mained as Jax. My growing up, like that was my jam, and so they wanted a signed poster of Jax. I think they ended up getting a Moon Knight as well, but yeah, they were very excited. They're like, wait a minute, and we have these big like 11 by 17 ones of Jax that they were very excited about. So yeah, it's kind of interesting the different folks, all the panorama of fandom in a way, and I'm stoked about any of it, man. I just cannot believe that I'm here where I love what I do and I'm happy to get to do it, but even better that it makes a difference in somebody's life, whether it's playing the game and they enjoy it, or it's somebody who's had insomnia and now can get rest. It's any of those things. Nobody really reaches out about commercials I've done, but but yeah, for the most part, the characters and that work really it's amazing. It's really neat.
Yeah, wait till they find out that all the commercial stuff you've done pays a lot more than the other stuff that you're known for.
Indeed, the commercial work pays your bills. That is for sure. The video games and stuff are amazing. They're so much fun, but a lot of the commercial work is what actually pays your bills because you get usage and residual stuff. From using the commercial every 4 to 6 weeks or something. They send you a check until they stop using it. Then they don't send you anymore. But yeah, it's pretty neat.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing. It's like because most people don't know this, but I think that but because there are different like because when people think of voiceover, they think oh cartoons, anime, video games, but it's like
Hmm.
but it's promo, narration, e-learning, all this other stuff that nobody talks
Yeah,
about.
audiobooks.
Yeah, and I think that that's kind of a shame because I think that because I've talked to people who've only done promo and they're like, yeah, it's a totally different world than doing like character work because they want more like a conversational read. They want like a specific way of saying the thing to
Yeah, yeah.
to please investors and all that stuff. And
Tonight on ABC, that kind of the promo work for sure. They have it's a different realm, a different world, a different pay structure. Everything about it's a little different, and it's not the same as a character voice. But sometimes they use aspects of character when doing that kind of work. So I think it behooves anybody who wants to become a voice actor to consider trying to do a little bit of everything because it's what'll keep you afloat because video games are great and I love them and honestly I can't complain. I'm very happy, but I mean it's not like they're making a game every day and that you have something to work on. So you have to be able to do other things, and commercial work is very important because, again, like I said, it pays a lot of the bills. Audiobooks are fun; they don't get paid as much, but they're great. And you can if you can use your voice to create the imagery with a wonderful book well written book, then that's incredible. I mean, there's, please hold as we connect you to your person, or like there's IVR, phone trees. There's so many different kinds of work that you don't realize, you don't think about necessarily. And maybe you thought it was AI even, but nope, somebody got hired to tell you press 9 now.
yeah, yeah, it's funny you mentioned promo work because I know that most people nowadays probably know Gabe Kunda as Blade in Marvel Rivals, but that guy has made his living off of doing promo and trailer voices. That's his
Yeah.
specialty. That's where all his money comes from. It's like, yeah, I mean the video game stuff and the anime, that's the bonus, you know.
Yeah, and like there's another one too, anime. I've gotten to dub a couple things over the last a couple years. I've gotten to be a part of some of these anime dubs, and they're super fun. They don't pay quite as much either, but they're a blast, and it's really fun working with the people that do it because one, a lot of times again, there's another area where you're probably being directed by somebody who is a peer that you've done work together with in maybe a video game or something, and now they're doing the dubbing and they're directing you to how to do it, and it's different because they know right where the moments are that they need those emotes or where they need this line, and then sometimes you deliver the line and they go, it's not matching the lip flap or it's not matching this or the timing's off, and then they'll rewrite the line and truncate it to make it a little bit better to sound better and work better, which some people go, well, that's not a proper translation of that line, and you're like, yeah, well, if I translate it completely and properly, there might be a real problem with the audio of the show. So you have to kind of nuance things, I guess, into place.
Yeah, man, because they have time coders who watch the episode raw and they take notes of like every time a character speaks or makes a sound to make sure that when they're localizing it, they have to make sure like when do we say this, when do we say that,
Yep.
how much seconds do we have to say this one line, and when you're
Yep.
doing that, because I've talked to a lot of people who do anime, and there's not there they. Let me tell you, like, there's never a worse feeling than giving a read that you really liked, and then having the director tell you, can we do it again because it was too short."
Right. Or the vice versa. It's too long and we need to cut it short. But yeah, exactly. You do a read and you feel really good about it, and they go, "Yeah, that was great, except it doesn't fit for the. Yep, we need you to stretch this out or shorten this up," and that can make it more difficult to give it the same quality of read and yet still match the time and the lip flap and everything else that it needs to be. So yeah, it can be tough.
And when you're dubbing, do you look at the script or screen?
Well, obviously, I watched the Japanese first, or whatever it is, whatever language it's originally done in. I will watch the scene and know, okay, I'm supposed to emote there, and then this is the line, and then I'm looking at the line, and they'll say, okay, let's give it a shot, and you hear what they call three beep, beep beep beep, kind of, and that's when you have to deliver, and then you're usually looking at the script to make sure you get the line right, and then you might have to go back and do it again to see if you didn't match lip as well. Like I said, I try to watch the scene itself to see what's coming. Then I look at the script, and if there's like, wow, that's a lot of words, you know, I know that I have to speed kind of through it, so I have to make it believable sounding. So there has to be a reason he's speeding through it, and sometimes it's, "Oh, I'm just really jacked. I got to tell you everything as fast as I can." So sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah, because man, dubbing is tough. I mean, it's really tough. I mean, because it's just like you gotta act in like a short amount of short time span to give like a you have like a short time span to give like a really grounded performance.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the thing that people don't realize when people say like, "Oh, you're just standing in front of a mic talking," and it's like, no, it's not that easy. There's a lot that goes on, and there's something we also, I mean, this will be nothing new to you, but cold reading, where you've never seen the script and you're trying to deliver it on the fly while reading it and saying it out loud and trying to keep yourself ahead. Your eyeballs are ahead by a word or two, so that you know what you're doing when your mouth is saying it, you know what I mean? So you have to kind of like scan ahead in a way and still keep track of what you're doing. And if that's, again, if that is too pictured, then yeah, you're trying to watch the picture, read the script, you're doing it all. And so there's a lot of brain power going. I'm not saying that I'm very smart. I'm just saying that it's a lot more taxing than people give you credit for. That's for sure.
Yeah, definitely. And that's another skill that that's another good skill to have, being able to cold read like anything, like here's a piece of paper, create a character, here's a paragraph. Like, can you do this like scene from a novel in like character voices? Go, got to be able to do.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, a well-rounded actor can do a lot of these things because they've practiced at it, they've worked at it, and you just change the situation with, the director, the script, all of that changes, but everything else is the actor has to be able to do it. And yeah, that's what I find very important, and I think it's just lost. The general public sometimes loses that. They don't realize that there is a lot more to it than just standing in front of a microphone and reading words off a page.
Yeah, and sometimes like you don't even know like half, especially when you're doing anime, the other actors haven't recorded with you and you're just going off the Japanese, and the Japanese audio is great and all, but it's not going to be the English performance because English and Japanese are different languages, and
Well, that, and yeah, like also the intensity. Like I'm sure you've seen enough anime to know that sometimes they damn near screaming at each other because they're it's kind of what the intensity is asked for from the series or the whatever the project, but it may not apply to an American sensibility of how you would act, I guess. And doing it in English, so there's sometimes adjustments, but overall it's a very interesting, it's to me, I found it very interesting because of the fact that there were lines that the Japanese original seemed like he was going pretty aggro, and I was like, I don't think that's something this guy would scream like that. And they're like, yeah, no, we don't want you to do that. We want you to do what you're doing. And I'm like, oh, okay. Because and so it can differ a little bit from the original, obviously, but at the same time, I think it's also, you're making it for your target audience. And I'm not doing it in Japanese, so I'm not doing it for Japan. I'm doing it for the US. And they may have a different sensibility about whether or not I should be losing my absolute mind at this moment.
Yeah, it depends on the context as well. It's like, is it just like who is this character? Why are they talking like this? Are they an over the top character? Okay, we can like keep the over the top aspects, but like dial it down a little bit for for so the actor doesn't kill themselves like yelling constantly.
Indeed.
Yeah, yeah, but it is interesting. So, and like, I take it like, you didn't, I take it like there was a learning curve when you were started doing dubbing. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, I think I fairly naturally kind of gripped it, but yeah, there's a little bit of a learning curve, and like I said, it also depends on your target audience and who you're making it for, and whether or not that's somebody that they do appreciate the explosive reads, or if they want the more mellowed out kind of thing. So yeah, there's a little bit of a learning curve. Obviously, we've got great people directing us, and I never shy away from a line read even, because I'm like, oh, okay, I see where you're going. Yeah, no problem. I can stay in that zone. Um, yeah, it was a little bit of a learning curve for me, and it's fascinating though. I mean, I love what I do. Everything that I've gotten to do, I'm thrilled by. I mean, I even like audiobooks, even though I don't generally do many of them because I feel like it's a lot of work, like because you get paid by finished hours. So it's not, you could spend over 2 hours doing 1 hour of finished audio. So it is not something I do a lot of, but I do have a few out there because a friend of mine is an author and wanted me to be the voice of his books. So I have a few out there that are audiobooks out there that you can check out, and it's from the Hard Boiled Magic series, T.W. Allen.
It sounds like something that's right up your alley, to be honest.
Oh man, the character, when I did a test read for him, he instantly was like, "Oh yeah, 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 this is it. This is what we want. I love it, man. Thank you." And I'm like, "Oh, okay," because it was sort of that. I mean, he's kind of like a Gallagher or even a Draven, I guess, but he's got hey, listen, pal. And then I have to have my sort of normal narrator voice, and he when I did it, he was like, "Yep, that's exactly what I want from Mr. Lewis." And I went, "All right." So, yeah, it's a fun series actually. It's sort of like Dresden Files in a way. He's like a warlock, and he has a business card that says physics consultant because you call him when things don't actually match real physics in your world.
That sounds amazing.
Yeah, he's a warlock detective. It's really fun. It's a fun series.
Yeah, I'll have to check it out sometime. And when you're usually doing audiobooks, and I know that, speaking to other people who've done audiobooks, they're very time consuming. How do you approach doing audiobooks?
For me, it's well, I don't. No, I'm kidding. But for me, it's I don't generally read all that much ahead. Although I will say that I've done things where I've read a page, and went, I could do sections better, and so I just went back and reread the page. And then there's things that you take from the first read and things you take from the second read, and you can edit them together. which is why it takes so much longer to get it done because you sometimes you don't know what's coming. You know what I mean? You're reading it along with the listener, and so you sometimes go, "Oh, I changed the inflection there. I got to go back," and you go back and you fix it, and then keep going. So yeah, it's a very interesting format, I guess. I like it, but like I said, it's a lot of work.
Yeah, because I know a lot of people who got into got into doing audiobooks during the pandemic when everyone was like stuck at home and there was nothing to do, and there was that
Hmm.
period where like there were no shows, nobody had figured out how to record from home yet. So they were just like, okay, let's just do audiobooks, and then they're like, never again.
Well, it is a lot of work, that is for sure. And then there's editing. If you don't have an editor, then you have to spend a lot of time, trimming out the mistakes, let alone the what if there's background noise or anything else. But trimming everything down and then pulling fades on everything it's a lot of work. And people, again, that's another thing that they don't think about. They're like, you just sat down and read the book, and I'm like, yeah. First of all, nobody reads perfectly every cold read page. So there's mistakes, obviously, and then breathing. A lot of times you want to take the breaths out and all of that. So it can be a lot. It's a lot of work.
Yeah, plus like, you also have to take into consideration that people are going to be listening to this, and a lot of people like I don't want to sound mean. I don't want to sound mean when I'm saying this, but a lot of people just don't have the time to read, so they just listen to the audiobook. And you have to take into consideration that, what you're recording has to be intelligible for the people who just want to listen to the audiobook.
Hmm. Well, and you're hoping that the audiobook, with a good narrator, I think it can bring you in more into it, into the story more. And then whether or not you do character voices for each of the characters, or if you just do a slight variation, a subtle variation on just your normal voice. But yeah, I mean, obviously I can't do a lot of female characters, but I just lighten my voice a bit to sound something like that.
Oh, so you do all the voices. It's not one of those cases where they get like, multiple people to do the
I,
male
I
or
mean, I have
female.
been a part of one of those, at least one of those, Earthlight. That one was really fun. We actually got nominated for an Audie this last year for Earthlight. It was really fun, and they have a full cast. And I was just a narrator. I just like pop in a few times. The rest of the time, it's this awesome cast of players. So yeah, it depends. Like I said, with the Magic series that I do. It starts with student loans paid in blood, and it has to do with like Loki makes an appearance, and that's part of why it's a little silly, it's a little tongue in cheek, and so I like to have fun with the characters, and the author really likes that I do. He wants me to go sometimes almost Looney Tunes in a way, which seems silly, but I don't think this is the right way to go, and he liked the silliness of my characters mixed with the more flat, and then he walked down the street, and then obviously the main character, he likes my voice for him. So
That's good to know. Like, because a lot of times, audiobook companies are just like, okay, who do we got on like, who do we got on speed dial that's willing to like record this for us?
well, and I mean, obviously there's authors that will request narrators and things like that, but there's a lot to it, and you never know if you get lucky, or if people just Scott Brick is one of the most well-known narrators out there, and he gets paid high dollar because if you're getting Scott Brick in there, you know it's going to be quality. But I don't know how much he goes into character voices as per se. He's just a great narrator, audiobook narrator.
Yeah, yeah, and sometimes like they just have like one person, if they've worked with someone who's been there
Hmm.
for God knows how many years, they'll just be like, oh, we'll just get them to do it because they've been doing it for X amount of years, and it's
That is the same with almost all forms of VO. I have video game people that I didn't get really any of the parts in their game, but they'll call me to go, "Hey, look, man, we got a bunch of these little smaller characters, and we need some stuff done." And I have no idea what they've hired me for. I go, "Okay, we'll book a session," and then I go in and they go, "This guy, he's like a big jerk. Hey, how you doing?" Like I just come up with something, and they go, "Yeah, that's good." And then they'll say, "But this guy's a little pipsqueak." "Oh, golly, mister, don't push me around." Like the idea that they know that they can get me to go to places where they can fill in all these different characters. That's same thing as the go-to narrator for an audiobook. There's go-to video game people. I call them utility players, and they're very valuable. And actually, if you're trying to start a voiceover career, being a utility player is very important, actually, because it keeps you working. Because you're not always going to get the leading roles in leading parts and stuff. So sometimes you have to be the chameleon that can go in there and do several different characters for them to help fill it out, so that they don't have too many people. They don't have a huge cast. They sometimes have a few utility players and then a couple of like main leads.
Yeah, because it's funny because I remember a couple years ago someone was talking about a specific actor, a specific voice actor, and they said like, this guy's been in a lot of stuff, but I'm struggling to remember which characters he played because he's been in so much things, and I just like it all just blends in together at some point.
Yeah, I mean, like that's kind of like my World of Warcraft experience, is that I've been a ton of characters in that. Nobody that you'll ever remember or care about. But I've done a bunch of them because, again, I've worked with them and they would reach out to me and say, "Hey, man, we need to fill in some roles," and so I would go in and do whatever the limit is. I think 5 characters, 4 or 5 characters maybe, or maybe it's 3. I can't remember now, but yeah, they would have me go in and just they're like, "Hey, here we assigned you this character, and this character," and you don't know, you didn't audition for it sometimes. Sometimes you did, but sometimes you didn't, and they just go, "Yeah, here's this guy. Let's come up with something for him." And same as you do in an audition, you look over if they have a picture of them, that helps. If they have a little like blurb or bio about them, that helps. All things like that. Sometimes they have nothing, and they're just like, he's just a random, soldier, and you're like, "All right, look out over there." You just come up with something, and boom, that gets set in stone, and it's done.
And when you're brought in to do like additional voices for a project, like how does that what is your mindset going into that? Where it's like, do you really think about like how to is there ever a point where you're breaking down a character or you're making up a backstory for the character, or you're just like, I know it's whatever?
So, sometimes it really depends on what they're asking of the character in the scenes, because what I would always tell people is like when you're doing this job and you're like, "Oh man, I'm gonna audition," there is time that you'll spend some time creating a backstory and knowing what this character's like. I also feel that you have to inhabit the character completely, so you need to be able to you need to know what they sound like when they're sad, when they're depressed, as well as when they're happy and giddy and laughing and all of that. Like, how do they sound? Do they have a do they have a funny laugh? Do they have excuse me, like they're hiding the fact that they're laughing? All kinds of things. They are what makes the character, and so sometimes you have to think about all these things. And if you can, you think of it ahead of time. If you can't, then you have to work on the spot and know, like, okay. So whenever I do a voice, I instantly start thinking like, well, what do they sound like when they're sad or happy or mad or whatever?
Yeah, and sometimes the context is important. Like, what type of show or game am I working on? Is it a
Yep, yep.
comedy? Is it a drama? And you take it from there.
Yeah. I mean, that helps too with auditions when you go to audition for stuff. If you are a gamer and it tells you it's a MOBA, it's a mobile online battle arena or whatever, you're like, "Oh, okay, I know this is like a League of Legends kind of thing. There's going to be a character, but then they're probably going to see them from a top down and they're running around doing stuff, so they're going to just throw out lines here and there." Or is it a it's all cutscenes, and you know that they're all like, I can have these emotional cutscenes, but then in between is just that kind of thing, or whatever, an adventuring game kind of thing like that. Yeah, all of those, knowing the genre of what you're working on definitely helps you create the character, let alone be the character and know what's expected of you.
Yeah, you can't just go in there and like, be like, "Oh, I know what this sounds like," but then they're like, "Oh no, we want a totally different like." You gotta like you gotta be willing to work with people and find and just have that collaboration process and
The
find
collaboration is very important. There's a few ingredients for a voice actor, and collaboration's one of them. Obviously, having the smorgasbord of characters, appreciating and having a big imagination. Um, these kinds of things help you be a better actor because you can think about like, oh, hmm, what would it be like if I was on another planet? What kind of rocks and trees and things like that? Everything. What would be different? What would I see differently? And how would I sound if I'm in an environment where I just got invited onto the space shuttle? Because I met you in space and now I'm on the space station. To me, this is a foreign place. If I'm an alien, it's a foreign place. I'm like, I have no idea what to think about this because my space station looks like an atrium at a freaking like plants everywhere or something. So it just depends, and you have to have a big imagination to consider what that's like to be there, and what your character how they might feel and act and sound when they're in those situations.
Yeah, especially when you're playing an alien and it's like a comedy series and the joke is like they're an alien from a different planet and they don't know what Earth culture is. Like you have to make sure that you get that across with just your voice, where it's like, okay, what type of inflection do I use? Mispronounce words to make sure
Right.
that people
Well, that,
understand.
and like they did a brilliant. One of my favorite things is the way they played Drax in a lot of the Guardians of the Galaxy. He goes, "Don't worry, it's over your head," and he goes, "Nothing gets over my head." It's like he doesn't get the turn of phrase because he doesn't speak, English all the time or whatever. Earthling for that matter. But no, I'm kidding. There's many languages here, but I'm just saying, like, he doesn't get the turn of phrase. He doesn't understand that. He's a very literal person, and so things like that I find very funny, because, well, I mean, hopefully everybody does, but yeah, it's that whole thing of like they're not. I hate to say normal, but they're not like what you normally would encounter. So to them, a turn of phrase can be different, or shaking hands. They're like, "Oh, we shake butts," or or something. Whatever it is, it could be a different thing for them. So they are perplexed. Okay, I will do that.
Yeah, yeah, and that's like and I love that type of humor where because I feel like a lot of shows when they do the whole like alien from a different world and they don't understand Earth culture, they do like the typical, oh, they're an alien and they don't know what this is, but it's like it just becomes hackney. And I think that if you're gonna write something like that, you got to make sure that they the audience understands that that this is a that the culture is different, that there's a sense of culture shock, but there's also like you got to make your character likable. It's like, oh, basically what I'm trying to say is like you got to make sure that the joke is like you're laughing with at the character for being naive, but not like outright laughing at them because they're stupid. Does
Right,
that make
right.
sense?
Again, like you said, more laughing with them, hopefully. But yeah, it's a subtlety, I think, that has to be used in those situations, to where the character is a real character, they're kind or whatever, but they also don't understand, handshakes. So yeah.
Yeah, it's not just like, oh well, it's like, oh, look at this guy and he's walking backwards and it's just like, that's lazy. That's just too lazy. Like that's not what they do. They're sitting on the table and we sit on the chairs. It's like, ugh. It's just
Right.
yeah. But yeah, I mean, you gotta take into consideration like what the character is, what do the directors and writers want from you, and how can you work with them to achieve their vision.
Hmm.
So, it's not just like showing up and recording a bunch of lines. It's basically what I'm trying to
Well,
say.
that's I think the thing that people forget is like, oh, I can do some funny lines, and I'm like, yeah, but you're forgetting that funny line, that character that you've created to say those lines. Oh, I like sounding like this. But what does he sound like, in every aspect of his life? What? Oh, I'm really sad. Well, I'm very excited. They have to sound different, or at least be able to emote properly.
Yep. And you gotta take into consideration as well, where it's like, okay, who's the target audience? Is it for children? And if it is for children, how old? Or like, we're talking like 6 to 12 or younger, because then when you get
Yeah.
to when you get into
I mean, a
preschool
lot of those
characters.
decisions have been made before you get there because there'll be somebody directing this project and they're like, "Oh, this is for kids," or "This is." But they'll let you know about that when you go into it. And obviously, when you're auditioning, you're hoping that you're picking up on the cues that you need to know. Otherwise, they won't cast you. And it's not rejection; it's just selection. They selected somebody different. They didn't reject me. They just chose to go with somebody who had a more, like we said, more grounded and real performance than a cartoony thing that I did.
And sometimes they're just like, okay, this is a show for preschoolers. You can't sound too scary. You got to make them like cartoony,
Hmm.
like non-threatening.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it's a lot of those. Again, it's one of those things where I think that people who just look at what you guys do and just say, oh, they're just showing up to do funny voices. I'm like, no, that's not what they do. That's not what voice actors do. They
Yeah,
create
we're showing up to
characters.
act as a character.
Yeah. So anyway, like before I wrap this up, can you give us an update on what you're currently working on and where can people find you online?
You can find me online. Most of stuff is Erik Braa or at Erik Braa or EROCKVO, EROCKVO. I think that's the TikTok and the Insta. But most of the time it's just Erik Braa. You can also just, I hate to say this, but you can always Google me. You'll probably find everything. But yeah, you can find me on what I'm working on now at the moment is NDA'd and I can't say anything. I'm very excited about it and I really wish I could say something. It's I think going to be big, but I don't know. That depends on I guess your perspective and whether or not you like the intellectual property that it is. But I'm very excited for it. So yeah, there's some fun stuff coming, and I'm always doing updates to some of the characters that I have done more recently, including Honkai Star Rail and Cookie Run Kingdom and things like that. Sometimes they call you in for updates, so those be on the lookout for that. If you're a fan of any of that, and otherwise, I do lots of sleep stories on the Sleepy Time Broadcast, which is my own podcast wherever you get podcasts, and I do a Twitch stream as well. And I'll be playing the actual games that I'm in on that same Twitch stream. That is twitch.tv/Erik Braa.
Thank you so much for taking the time out to do this. I know we had to like do this twice, but like I said, that's on me. But thank you so much.
No, no, man, I'm happy to do it. It's nice to talk to you.
Yeah. And as soon and like always, once more stuff clears up and you can finally talk about the stuff that's under NDA, we'll have you back on to talk about that because I love talking to
That'd
you.
be great. Great talking to you.
All right, take care. Bye bye.
Bye, everybody.